Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about permafrost thaw and why our efforts against climate change should hold increased focus towards this unpredictable detriment. So to start off with an overview of what permafrost is considered all types of ground, including soil, sediment, rock, and so on, that has been seasonally frozen for over 2 years. It varies a lot in age, thickness, and also area. Where is permafrost found? 25% of the northern hemisphere itself is made of permafrost, and a majority of this permafrost is spread between Siberia, Canada, Greenland, and Alaska. Permafrost is also located, however, in high altitude areas like the Rocky Mountains and the Alps. Permafrost covers an estimated 9 million square miles of our globe. Just so you can get a basic understanding, here are some pictures. So the one on the right is a depiction of what permafrost looks like, and although it is varying, this is a good idea of what it is. And then on the left, you can see from a view of above the North Pole how much of the northern hemisphere itself is permafrost, and you can see how a large amount of Canada and Greenland and Russia is continuous permafrost. So permafrost and climate change. Global warming has a detrimental effect on permafrost. Increasing global temperatures have begun to trigger sudden and rapid permafrost thaw. Permafrost thaw caused by this occurrence has shown to be extremely unpredictable and impossible to undo. The dangers of rapid thaw are various, from harm to the ecosystem to devastation in communities. Now, this has been going on for quite some time as global warming has gotten worse. So, since the early 1900s, 10% of permafrost within the northern hemisphere has dissipated. So the main concerns of permafrost thaw, and which I'm going to be talking about today, are the release of greenhouse gases, infrastructure damage, landscape alterations, and the release of diseases. So to start off with infrastructure damage, permafrost creation causes swelling and expansion of the ground. When thawing, the ice becomes liquid and causes landscape contractions. So obviously, whenever water freezes, it expands, and then the opposite happens whenever it thaws. So underneath of like roads and infrastructure, like houses and cities, the earth will crack and concede. So you can see pretty clearly on these two pictures a very good example of how whenever this happens, the roads, just as an example, begin to kind of sink in and become very rigid. So potholes appear, and there's just major infrastructural problems, which causes a lot of economic suffering in northern communities that tend to be very small. So what is the significance? 35 million people live in the permafrost zone, and these people face economic backlash caused by the destruction of their cities, roads, and homes. Um, Permafrost and greenhouse gases. This is probably one of the most notable problems with permafrost thawing. When permafrost is formed, a range of bodies, plants, and the microbes they store become trapped in the ice, and the deep freeze causes a complete halt in the decomposition of these organisms, and gases that would be released by these organisms naturally during decomposition remain in the ice. So then, when the permafrost begins to suddenly thaw, greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane held within these organisms are suddenly released. Permafrost, being thousands of years old, stores a great amount of organisms and thus is one of the globe's largest stores of greenhouse gases. The main greenhouse gases that are released from permafrost are carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide and methane are both enormous contributors to global warming, so that's another reason why this is such a big problem. Going off of that, Arctic permafrost holds an approximate double the amount of carbon already found within the atmosphere. So we're already having this huge problem with global warming. And then the global warming is causing the permafrost to thaw, which already holds double the amount of carbon. So you can see how that can become a problem. So then, to get a better visual idea of it, you can see on the left picture how it depicts how whenever the temperature increases, the active layer ends up melting the permafrost, and then the organic matter thaws and decays, and CO2 and methane are increased in the atmosphere, which then kind of causes this cycle of greenhouse gases causing permafrost thawing, which releases more greenhouse gases and facilitates further thawing. So then another major problem within the permafrost, especially right now during the pandemic that we're in, is diseases. So permafrost dates thousands of years back and contains an enormous amount of unknown microbes. Science suggests that bacteria and viruses have the ability to stay dormant in permafrost for thousands of years. And as permafrost thaws, microbes awaken as the ground becomes warmer. This is incredibly dangerous because increased drilling action and population within the Arctic cause more human contact with the microbes that are being released from the permafrost. And largely so, we do not know what diseases and what microbes are hidden in the permafrost until they are released and interact with humans and animals. So, some examples of this. First is mass graves. So the Arctic permafrost is home to multiple mass grave sites from past pandemics. So scientists have found H1N1, which is the swine flu RNA in mass graves from the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. And evidence also suggests that the possibility of smallpox and the bubonic plague being dormant in the permafrost is possible. So then for a more recent idea of what can be stored in the permafrost is an anthrax breakout. So if you look up permafrost and diseases, this is what's going to come up first because it's one of the most notable and traceable links between disease and permafrost. So in 2016, in the Yamal Peninsula in Siberia, um, people had contact with reindeer in which died from an anthrax breakout in the 20th century, which killed about like millions of reindeer. And they brought it back to their community in the peninsula, and over 20 people were hospitalized, and one child died because anthrax was brought from dead reindeer bodies into communities because it was stored in the permafrost, and when it began to thaw, it was released. Other possibilities are, other possibilities besides anthrax, H1N1, and the speculation over smallpox and the bubonic plague suggests that other microbes are also dormant, such as botulism, giardia, the rabies virus, and West Nile virus, and also hantavirus. So, obviously, right now, especially during a pandemic, this is incredibly important because we see how these things can affect communities, and we do not need more breakouts on top of this. So, overall, I want to impress upon you guys how important permafrost thaw is and why our efforts against climate change should really focus in on this because permafrost threatens communities and essential infrastructure and also our atmosphere. And on top of that, it really threatens global health, which we can see how important that is. So, overall, what I want you guys to take away from this is the importance of trying to reverse the permafrost thawing within our globe as a main effort against climate change. Thank you all and have a nice day.